We think of space as the final frontier, the last place for mankind to explore. But what if space isn't the final frontier? What if there are dimensions beyond physical space we haven't begun to acknowledge yet? And what if there are people who have already begun to explore this new realm of existence? It may sound bizarre, but there is evidence that physical space is not the end of our outreach into the heavens, but simply the beginning. Could aliens be visiting us from other realms? Could they use corridors through other dimensions to reach our tiny blue world? And can we expand our consciousness enough to understand these strange new realms? Are we on the cusp of a truly new way of contemplating the cosmos? And are there beings from these dimensions trying to make contact with us? Scientists now agree that there does exist other planes and dimensions beyond the physical universe, though they admit they know virtually nothing about them. Yet daily, there are UFO sightings that appear so bizarre, so strange, that it is difficult for us to wrap our minds around them. Are aliens using some advanced technology to delve into these layered realms? Or do they do it by accessing some hidden conscious ability within themselves? Strange UFO sightings have occurred frequently in modern times, but if we can believe the scratching of ancient man on cave walls, they are nothing new. Throughout the Southwest, bizarre depictions of strange beings and even their craft have been etched on rock for centuries. These petroglyphs appear to show aliens, some tall and larger than life, meeting early man in unusual circumstances. Further south, we find the Nazca Lines, bizarre inscriptions that can only be viewed from high altitude. Indeed, throughout the world, there exists a multitude of unusual markings that appear to show extraterrestrial beings making contact with man. Who are these beings, and why are they interested in our Earth? How did they travel the vast distances between planets and even galaxies? If you're one of those people who thinks aliens are only ever seen by lonely farmhands and drunken hillbillies, prepare to be unnerved. The 1966 Westall Australian encounter was witnessed by over 200 people and provoked a response from both the police and Australian Air Force. On April 6th, pupils and teachers at two schools in a Melbourne suburb watched as a low-flying silver-gray shiny object drifted over an empty field before landing behind some trees. Witnesses described it as looking like a cup turned upside down on a saucer. While both schools are near an airport, staff are well versed enough in aircraft to know it was unlike anything they had ever seen before. When some pupils went to investigate, the craft abruptly took off again, speeding away into the sky. The only traces left were some unusual scorch marks in the forest. What's so truly disturbing about the Westall encounter is the sheer number of witnesses, along with how spread out they were. For such a diverse group to have simultaneously had a mass hallucination is almost as incredible as an explanation of a flying saucer. And that's before we get into the involvement of the Australian government. So, did aliens come to visit Melbourne some 50 years ago? We'll leave it to you to decide. saucers zipping about is not too unusual, but what makes them fly is a total mystery. Some have speculated they use a type of nuclear propulsion. If so, then this case from 1886 is very intriguing. In October 1886, a family in the Venezuelan town of Maracaibo suffered a strange and hideous fate. During an intense lightning storm, their small hut suddenly became bathed in a dazzling white light. The air outside was reportedly humming, and the inside of the hut filled with a smoky smell. Almost immediately, all 9 family members were overcome by a fit of vomiting, as large lesions erupted on their skin. But the worst was yet to come. After 9 days had passed and the encounter already begun to grow dim in their minds, the family suddenly began to lose their hair. Whole sections of their skin sloughed off, and all 9 became covered in hideous sores. At the same time, the trees around their hut withered and died. The family were taken to a hospital where no more is known of their fate. However, we can hazard a guess. They almost certainly died. The symptoms above are more or less identical to those caused by a massive blast of radiation, described almost 50 years before anyone knew what radiation poisoning was. What caused the death of that Venezuelan family remains unknown, but some flying saucer enthusiasts have claimed that radiation from a spacecraft is the only plausible answer. Whatever the truth, there's no denying that this story is the very definition of an unexplained phenomenon. Another of the most bizarre supposed UFO sightings in modern history took place at Falcon Lake in Manitoba, Canada, and involved a man named Stephen Malkalik. Malkalik was a prospector who claims to have encountered not one, but 2 UFOs, and after investigating the objects, he was blasted with some sort of hot gas from an exhaust vent that left him with bizarre markings on his midsection and led to his being hospitalized. This remains one of the most bizarre cases of a UFO sighting on record, simply because it's one of the few in which the person who claims to have made contact with alien life suffered a very real, very strange injury. He suffered from nausea, headaches, and the odd burn markings in a very distinct grid shape across his abdomen. There is no reasonable explanation for this, unless he too came into contact with the strange propulsion systems of one of their craft. A UFO sighting on the evening of December 29, 1980 changed the lives of 3 Texans forever, and not for the good. While driving through the southern tip of the East Texas piney woods north of Houston, Betty Cash, Vicki Landrum, and Vicki's 7-year-old grandson Colby came upon a huge diamond-shaped object just above the trees and 130 feet away. Cash hit the brakes, and she and the elder Landrum stepped outside. Immediately, they noticed intense heat. Their faces felt as if they were burning. When Vicki re-entered the car and touched the dashboard to steady herself, she left a handprint. Blasting fire and heat, the UFO slowly ascended. Suddenly, numerous helicopters, 23 in all, appeared from all directions, positioning themselves near the strange craft. But this time, the witnesses were back in the car and watching the spectacle from their moving vehicle. Other motorists saw the object and the helicopters from different, more distant locations. Eventually, the flying objects were lost to view. Unfortunately, the episode was only beginning. Back home, the three fell sick, Cash most severely. She suffered blisters, nausea, headaches, diarrhea, loss of hair, and reddening of the eyes. On January 3rd, unable to walk and nearly unconscious, she was admitted to a Houston hospital. Vicky and Colby were experiencing the same symptoms, though less severely. The witnesses' health problems continued throughout their lives. In September 1991, Cash's personal physician, Dr. Brian McClelland, told the Houston Post that her condition was a textbook case of radiation poisoning, comparable to being 3 to 5 miles from the epicenter of Hiroshima. For years, the three have pursued their case through the courts, seeking answers and redress. But official agencies deny any knowledge of the incident, even though the helicopters have been identified as twin-rotor Boeing CH-47 Chinooks, used by both the Army and the Marines. Betty Cash died at the age of 71 on December 29, 1998, exactly 18 years after her claimed close encounter. Vicky Landrum died September 12th of 2007, 7 days before her 84th birthday. Are these bizarre alien accidents where humans were adversely subjected to their technology and suffered horrendous fates? Or could the extraterrestrials be uncaring and unsympathetic towards their encounters with hapless Earthlings? One thing is for sure, if you do happen upon a hovering UFO, stay away as far as you can. Strange and bizarre UFO cases where humans have been subjected to horrid radiation. Interdimensional alien spacemen from distant worlds or planes of existence too complex to fathom. We do indeed live in a weird, unexplainable world with mysteries around every corner. It's incredible that most do not believe any strange phenomenon until they witness it themselves. Consider these cases that changed the minds of many when they came to public knowledge. In July of 1991, people living in Mexico City reportedly spotted something strange in the sky at a time when they were expecting to see nothing more or less than a solar eclipse. However, they were met with something far more out of the ordinary, with numerous people saying they saw an unidentified flying object, with actual journalists reportedly having captured this bizarre flying object on video when trying to film the eclipse. Since this time, there have been numerous reports of UFOs in the area, but none more particular than the UFO spotted that summer by multiple people looking from various positions in the huge city. A few months later, a similar UFO was spotted during an air show in the area, but no explanation has ever been offered. One of the most famous UFO sightings in modern United States history took place in the town of Sirocco, New Mexico back in 1964, with the chief witness being none other than a police officer named Lonnie Zamora. Zamora was in pursuit of a speeding car when he saw an object in the sky shaped like an oval and bearing a bizarre red insignia on its side. He claims to have seen this object rise from the ground and take off into the distance, and his story drew tremendous media and government attention, including leading to the CIA filing a report on the incident. Zamora came to be known as something of a kook and retired from the police force shortly after the incident. You know you've made it in the world of mysterious alien encounters when people refer to your UFO sighting as a bona fide incident. Such is the case of the 1965 Kecksburg, Pennsylvania encounter, in which multiple people claim to have witnessed something crashing into the woods near the town not far from Pittsburgh. People who saw it claimed the object that fell from the sky was roughly the size of a Volkswagen Beetle, and say that almost immediately after it crashed to Earth, the United States Army arrived and roped off the area. The official report is that it was a meteor crashing down into the woods, though obviously most of the folks who were present to see the object for themselves remained skeptical of this explanation. To this day, the case remains a mystery, good evidence of a real UFO sighting. At midnight on September 19th of 1976, the Iranian Air Force began receiving calls about a mysterious light shining above the streets of Tehran. Fearing an enemy aircraft, generals separately dispatched 2 pilots to investigate. What happened next would go down in UFO history. As the first pilot approached the object, his aircraft systems completely failed. Aborting his mission, he turned back towards the city, only to have his plane return to full operational capacity. The second pilot suffered an even creepier fate. After picking the object up on radar, he prepared to shoot it down, only for the object to attack him instead. Allegedly, a bright light launched itself at his craft, missing only when he executed an evasive maneuver. What followed was a chase across Tehran's skies as the object knocked out communication systems, shorted out power supplies, and generally caused mayhem on the ground before it finally disappeared. Although no conclusive proof exists, today nearly all those involved apparently believe they encountered a genuine UFO. However, we'll never know if the Iranian government itself agreed. All records were destroyed or lost following the Islamic Revolution a mere 3 years later. The same year that Iran was chasing mysterious lights across the sky, the Canary Islands were having their own strange encounter. At 9:27 p.m. on June 22nd, Navy personnel reportedly noticed a strange light traveling along the horizon that later split into 2 distinct objects. However, even this weird little tale has nothing compared to the reports on the ground. The residents of one street in La Rosa, Gran Canaria, reported seeing a gigantic translucent blue sphere hovering just above the ground. Roughly 30 meters in diameter, the sphere supposedly contained 2 humanoid creatures, vague shadows that could be seen against the stars. According to one witness, things then got even crazier, with the sphere expanding to enormous dimensions before vanishing off into the night sky. In the intervening years, several explanations have been put forward, ranging from meteor effects to a missile test. Yet to this day, people continue to swear they saw this strange orb and the even stranger creatures inside it. A shape-shifting, vanishing ball of fire streaking over a major population center sounds like something out of a sci-fi movie. But the Kolkata fireball was very real, terrifying the city's 4.5 million residents in 2007. At around 3:30 a.m., the few souls unlucky enough to be awake saw a gigantic object streaking through the Indian sky. A national news report claimed that hundreds saw it pass, with one man even capturing it on his camcorder. According to Indian reports, scientists were completely baffled by the object, which seemed to radiate a halo of colors as it passed overhead. Although most observers assumed it was a meteorite, the object's ability to change shape throws a particularly irksome spanner into that theory, leaving the possibility of an alien visit wide open. UFO reports are often dismissed until high-quality photos or video is produced. One such encounter took place in the 1950s, well before digital effects and photoshopping images. In Oregon, in May of 1950, a farmer named Mr. Trent saw a UFO at his farm outside McMinnville. According to Mr. Trent, his wife Evelyn first spotted the object, a silvery metallic disc. She was outside feeding her rabbits when it appeared in the early evening sky. She called out to her husband, who came outside and watched for a couple of minutes. He then went in and got a camera and took 2 high-resolution pictures before the object sped off to the west. The most striking thing lending credence to the story is the Trent's behavior. They never made any money off the photographs and actually had to be convinced to let them be published by a local reporter. Apparently, they were afraid of getting into trouble with the government. There are disagreements as to the veracity of the photos. The Condon Report, a 1967 study into UFO phenomenon conducted by the University of Colorado, concluded that relative photographic densities of objects in the photos suggest that the object was distant, meaning they were somewhat likely to be genuine. A much more recent examination concluded that the object's geometry was consistent with a small model hanging from a wire, but that wire has never been spotted in either high-resolution photo. And Evelyn and Paul Trent earnestly insisted until their deaths in 1997 and 1998, respectively, that the photos were of an actual UFO. Why would aliens travel the vast distances across space just to allow us to take their picture? Are they here for some nefarious agenda we cannot comprehend? Or are they simply passing by with no regard to us as we go about our daily affairs? Who are the aliens, and why are they here? Unusual UFO encounters happen almost daily. Some may be explainable, while others remain a mystery for decades. Recently, there was a sighting that happened across the western United States during 2015. Government officials were quick to call November 8th's alleged UFO sighting as nothing more than a missile test, but not everyone is buying it. Those who witnessed the bizarre event have come up with some conspiracy theories of their own, blaming the incident on everything from meteor showers to alien contact. California, Nevada, Arizona residents were left stunned after a strange blue light was seen streaking across the sky. Was it a UFO? A meteor? Well, according to government officials, it was nothing more than a routine submarine missile test. But that hasn't stopped some from coming up with their own rationalizations about the incident. Many were also suspicious over the fact that the government didn't announce the missile test ahead of time, and it was conducted over a densely populated city rather than a deserted desert as is typically the case. Suffice it to say, it stirred the beliefs of many as they watched this odd blue UFO-type light streak skyward. UFO sightings often entice our interest in worlds beyond our own. We marvel at science fiction TV shows and movies that depict life in some faraway galaxy or a journey on a starship headed to where we have never gone. It's part of our unconscious mind to wonder what is beyond our grasp. But one does not have to look toward space to find bizarre mysteries to ponder. Indeed, one may only need to look toward the many wheat fields that dot the landscape around the world. Crop circles have been appearing in grain fields all over the earth during the last few decades. They appear suddenly, usually at night. At first, they were simple circles of bent-over grain stalks. Soon, a new crop of more elaborate designs evolved. Geometric forms reminiscent of profound mathematical theorems. Some seriologists, the people who study crop circles, say that these diagrams must be created by intelligent alien beings from elsewhere. Even though these diagrams must be constructed in a very short time span, the genuine crop circles never show any serious mistakes or blunders of execution. Seriologists see this as evidence that the aliens must be intelligent and much more advanced than we are. There's good evidence that aliens have been defacing the Earth's surface with the geological graffiti for a very long time. The curious lines and drawings on the Nazca Plain in Peru likely have the same cause. The number of crop circles has substantially increased from the 1970s to current times. There has been little scientific study of them. Circles in the United Kingdom are not spread randomly across the landscape, but appear near roads, areas of medium to dense population, and cultural heritage monuments such as Stonehenge or Asbury. In 1678, news pamphlets of the Mowing Devil, or strange news out of Hertfordshire, is claimed by some seriologists to be the first depiction of a crop circle. Since 2001, crop formations have increased in size and complexity of form, some featuring as many as 2,000 different shapes, and some incorporating complex mathematical and scientific characteristics. Though some circles are created by hoaxers, there remains a good number of them that are completely unexplained due to their location and speed at which they were created, as well as unusual magnetic and formation patterns within the circles themselves. Massive crop circles have been photographed soon after they appeared in fields throughout the UK. Some display such intricate designs that prove they would have had to have been made over a long period of time by a large number of people, yet they appeared quickly with no sign of human presence. A number of eyewitnesses claim to have seen crop circles created within a matter of seconds. The formations were so complex that it would have taken an army of people many hours just to attempt to create it by hand. Because nobody on Earth has been able to duplicate a true crop circle, certainly not at the cellular level, the assumption is made that it must be extraterrestrial in origin. People who stand inside a crop circle often experience a dramatic rush of emotions and increased perceptual abilities. If crop circles are messages from aliens, what does it mean? What are they trying to communicate? Who is the intended message receivers? Could these bizarre patterns in the fields be some connection to our place in the cosmos? If you think crop circles are bizarre, what would you think of people who claim to have had sex with aliens? Actually, it's not an uncommon report within the annals of UFO research. In what is probably China's best-known alien abduction report, farmer Ming Zhagao claims that in 2010 he was visited by a 9-foot-tall humanoid alien with 12 fingers and braided leg hair. He claims he went up into the hills to investigate what looked like a fallen aircraft when he was approached by the alien being. Ming and the alien had sex for 40 minutes while levitating in the air. The being returned that night to tell Ming she would bear his hybrid baby in 60 years. Police say Ming passed a lie detector test. In his book, Hair of the Alien, Peter Corey claims to have had 2 alien abduction experiences. The primary encounter involved 2 naked Nordic-like aliens who telepathically and sexually assaulted Peter. He went public with physical evidence of the encounter, claiming to have a blonde hair strand from one of the aliens. What followed was the world's first DNA analysis of a biological sample from an alleged alien abduction experience. As would be expected, the results of this DNA analysis have been hotly debated. Psychic Stephanie Fake Cohen claims to have had out-of-this-world sex with octopus-looking aliens and cat people. Interestingly, or perhaps disturbingly is the right word, of this cat imagery appears in her abduction experience. In another alien abduction story, UK laborer counselor Simon Parks claimed he had regular intercourse with an alien he referred to as the Cat Queen. Parks says he fathered a baby named Zarka with the aliens. Parks also says that he himself is the son of an 8-foot-tall mother alien who had 8 fingers. Antonio Villas-Boas' UFO experience was one of the first reported examples of alien abduction. Antonio was a Brazilian farmer working in a field late at night on October 16th of 1957 to avoid the scorching heat of working during the day. He claimed that as he plowed a field, he spotted a red star in the sky. This light slowly moved closer until he discerned that it was in fact a circular or egg-shaped UFO with a red light on its front. The craft landed in the field Antonio was working in. The farmer tried to make a run for it, but was captured and taken inside the UFO by a tall humanoid wearing gray coveralls and a helmet. He was taken into a room, had his clothes removed, and then he was joined by a very attractive female with white hair but bright red pubic hair. Despite his capture and his strange environment, he felt strongly for the female humanoid as she was naked, and Antonio was instantly attracted to her. Without speaking or kissing, they had sex, during which she growled like a dog. After the acts were over, the woman made gestures that Antonio took to mean that the act of sex was for the expressed desire to create a child. He was then given his clothes back and escorted off the craft. Antonio became a successful lawyer and always told the same account. Long before Patrick Swayze and Demi Moore summoned the spirit and ghosts, Stories of the succubus, a female spirit or demon who seduces a human male, and incubus, a male spirit or demon who seduces a human female, have held a place in folklore and mythology. But are there real supernatural or alien entities who engage in sexual activity with humans? Are there succubi who feed on the human life force via sex? Thousands of people claim to have bumped uglies with demons and ghosts. But is there anything more to this other than deviations on sleep paralysis, drugs, psychiatric issues, and an overactive unconscious? There are many incarnations of these beings in different cultures. The Popobawa, a manhunter of Zanzibar, an insecure dwarf in El Traco, a Hungarian demon called Lakrik. Stories of the succubus and incubus had special incarnations in ancient Egypt, Nigeria, and India too. Later, different nations accumulated tales, and each named their own succubi. Incubi are said to impregnate mortal women, who then birth rapists into the world. This is a claim that spans the globe, remarkably often in cultures in which premarital sex is heavily frowned upon. The movie The Entity is actually based on the true story of Doris Blyther, who lived in the haunted 11547 Braddock Drive residence in Culver City, California. Blyther, who was abused as a child, claimed she was visited by ghosts who sexually assaulted her. Her children also saw the ghosts, who appeared as Asian men and called one of them Mr. Who's It. The only evidence to back up Blyther's story were bruises on her inner thighs and testimony by her children, who claimed to have seen their mom being tossed around the room. A paranormal investigation team actually went to the home and claims to have experienced a powerful poltergeist that involved orbs, green mist, and musculature. It was so intense that one investigator actually passed out. None of the high-speed cameras were able to capture anything other than an arc of eerie light. Could aliens and ghosts enter our realm from the same place? Are beings from other dimensions or supernatural planes visiting us here in the physical universe? Strange tales of bizarre encounters abound in our culture. Perhaps these visits are not as unusual as we think. UFOs are not just a sky phenomenon. They're often seen landing with their pilots emerging to examine the area. Such a case occurred on the 14th of September in 1994. A UFO streaked across the sky over southern Africa. 2 days later, something landed in a schoolyard in Ruwa, Zimbabwe, with 3 or 4 beings beside it, according to journalist Cynthia Hind. This was witnessed by 62 school children who had little or no exposure to TV or popular press accounts of UFOs. Cynthia Hind interviewed them the day after the encounter and had them draw pictures of what they had seen. They saw 3 silver balls in the sky over the school. These disappeared with a flash of light and then reappeared elsewhere. This happened 3 times, and then they started to move down towards the school, with one of them landing or hovering over a section of rough ground made up of trees, thorn bushes, and some brown-gray cut grass with bamboo shoots sticking up out of the ground. After the craft flew away, the children all drew consistent pictures of the UFO and its strange occupants. One might dismiss the excited tale of a group of school children, But what happens when an astronaut and test pilot observes a landed UFO in broad daylight? It was 1957. Gordon Cooper was one of an elite band of test pilots at Edwards Air Force Base in California, in charge of several advanced projects, including the installation of a precision landing system. He would later become one of the most famous astronauts. He had a camera crew filming the installation when they spotted a saucer. They filmed it as it flew overhead, then hovered, extended 3 legs as landing gear, and slowly came down to land on a dry lake bed. The film crew were all professional cameramen, so the picture quality was very good. The camera crew managed to get within 20 or 30 yards of the UFO, filming continuously. It was a classic saucer, shiny silver and smooth, about 30 feet across. It was clear this was an alien craft. As they approached closer, it took off. When his camera crew handed over the film, Cooper followed standard procedure and contacted Washington to report the UFO. A high-ranking officer ordered Cooper, when the film was developed, to put it in a pouch and send it to Washington. Cooper watched the film, and the craft was clearly visible in the footage. When the Air Force later started Operation Blue Book to collate UFO evidence and reports, Cooper says he mentioned the film evidence. The film was never found. Project Blue Book and the government had covered up the whole incident. Why has the government kept its UFO secrets for so many years? Why cover up the most extraordinary evidence of a landed UFO from the public? A very credible UFO encounter occurred in the small town of Delphos, Kansas in 1971. This case has never been debunked and is still considered as one of the very best physical trace cases involving a UFO landing. 16-year-old Ron Johnson, along with his dog Snowball, was tending the family sheep when his attention was suddenly drawn to a mushroom-shaped UFO appearing in the night sky. The flying object, metallic with multicolored lights, was hovering approximately 75 feet away from Ron among some trees. Johnson estimated the craft was only a few feet above the ground. He estimated the craft's diameter at 6 to 8 feet. Ron described the craft as making a loud sound, like an old washing machine which vibrates. The glow of the object's bottom increased as it began to rise into the sky. He ran back to the family house to alert his mother and father. The bright glowing object was now even higher in the sky. Ron's parents came running around the side of the house to get a glimpse of the unusual phenomenon. They arrived just in time to see the object, now big as the full moon, as it disappeared from view. The 3 Johnsons were shocked to see a glowing ring on the ground, right below where the craft had hovered. There was also a glowing material on some of the trees nearby. After touching the ring, Ron's mother's fingers went numb, like she had been given a local anesthesia. After they were sure the craft was not returning, the family settled down for the night. The glowing circle remained overnight. Investigators took soil samples and determined the soil was severely dehydrated and would not hold water. Nothing would grow in the affected area as well. The unusual landing ring remained for several months after the encounter. Weird and unusual UFO landings have occurred multiple times in modern times. Perhaps as the aliens arrive at our world, they cannot help but affect the areas they visit, and each time they land, they leave further evidence of the reality of UFO encounters. It's one thing when one or two people observe a UFO, but when hundreds, even thousands of people witness UFOs, it's hard to ignore. Multiple mass UFO sightings throughout history have given pause to more than a few skeptics. They occur more frequently than you might imagine. On November 2nd in 1957, a fiery object was seen over Texas. At about 11 p.m. that evening in the town of Levelland, Texas, police received 15 frantic phone calls from local residents about a mysterious object in the sky. In an Associated Press account, one of the witnesses, a 30-year-old farm worker and Korean War veteran, described the object as a flash of light flying overhead with a rush of wind, and said that it had apparently caused the lights and engine of his truck to go dead. Other witnesses described the craft as blue and green and egg-shaped, and said that it abruptly morphed into a fireball before rising straight up and disappearing. In March of 1983, V-shaped lights were seen in the Hudson Valley. The suburban area, about an hour's drive north of New York City, was the scene of more than 5,000 UFO sightings from 1982 through 1986, perhaps one of the biggest clusters of incidents in history. One night on March 24th stands out because of the sheer volume. More than 300 residents called a local UFO organization's hotline that night, reporting that they had seen large V-shaped array of lights that moved slowly and almost silently through the sky. Some witnesses got close enough to say that the craft was big enough to be a flying city. Hunt Middleton, a local resident who had just stepped off a bus from New York City at 7:30 p.m., described a row of 6 or 7 extremely bright lights. He said they were all blinking on and off and were red, blue, green, and white. He knew it was not any type of conventional aircraft because the lights were stationary. Middleton said that he watched the object for 5 minutes before going inside his house to get his family to come out and see it. By then, it was gone. On the night of March 13th, 1997, the Phoenix Lights made history. On that evening, thousands of people in Nevada and Arizona reportedly saw what many described as an immense V-shaped object outlined by 7 lights. Others, however, reported seeing orbs and triangles in the sky as well. Police departments in Phoenix, Tempe, Glendale, and other Arizona cities were jammed with calls from residents. One witness, a man in his 30s named Dana Valentine, said that he and his father both watched as the lights passed 500 feet directly above them. He could see the outline of a mass behind the lights, but couldn't actually see the mass. It was more like a gray distortion of the night sky, wavy, he said. He didn't know exactly what it was, but he knew it was not a technology the public had ever heard of before. The military later claimed that National Guard pilots had released flares while on a training run, but not everyone accepted that explanation. No one accepted the flare explanation because they all said it didn't look like flares. The large UFO was even witnessed by the governor of Arizona. Then, on July 14th of 2001, a UFO on the New Jersey Turnpike was seen. Multiple witnesses, including a local off-duty police officer, watched in wonder as an array of yellow lights flew in formation in the suburban New Jersey area near New York City late in the evening and into the early morning of the following day. A short time later, at around 12:30 a.m., another witness, a police officer, Lieutenant Dan Tarrant, reportedly received a call at home from his 19-year-old daughter, who was out with friends and had seen strange lights in the sky. Tarrant told the Record and ABC News that he then stepped outside to take a look. As Tarrant subsequently told ABC News what he saw, he was astounded. 16 golden orange-colored lights, several in a V-shaped formation. Others were scattered around the V. Tarrant told the Record, a local newspaper, that the mysterious lights flashed across the sky for about 10 minutes, then faded one by one into the darkness. Texas was livid with reports on January the 8th of 2008. The Stephenville lights made worldwide news. In the evening, about 40 local residents, including a local amateur civilian pilot and a police officer, witnessed a UFO that hovered over the farming community for about 5 minutes before streaking away into the night sky. Police officer Leroy Gayton told National Public Radio that he was walking to his car when he saw a luminous object that reminded him of pictures of erupting volcanoes, suspended 3,000 feet in the air. Another witness estimated that the UFO was a half-mile wide, a mile long, and bigger than a Walmart. Going back in time, on June the 1st of 1853, several luminous objects were seen hovering over the Tennessee College campus. The sun rose over the campus of Burritt College. Numerous students, who apparently were early risers in those days, were startled to see 2 luminous objects in the sky. According to a professor, A.C. Carnes, who reported the incident in a letter to Scientific American, the first had the appearance of a small new moon, while the others resembled a large star. The small object then vanished, while the bigger one changed shape. First it was a globe, then into an elongated shape parallel with the horizon. The smaller light then became visible again and increased rapidly in size, while the other object shrank. The 2 objects continued fluctuating in a familiar fashion for the next 30 minutes. The students asked for an explanation, but neither the president nor professors were satisfied to the character of the lights. While the professors speculated that the occurrence might have been caused somehow by atmospheric moisture, the incident remains a mystery. Perhaps one of the largest and most publicized encounters took place back on February 25th of 1942. It's been called the Battle of Los Angeles because American troops tried to shoot down a UFO in full view of the public. In the early morning hours, radar operators spotted an unidentified object 120 miles west of Los Angeles and watched anxiously as it zoomed to within a few miles of the Southern California coast, and then, inexplicably, vanished from their screens. Sometime after that, an artillery officer along the coast reported what he described as 25 aircraft flying at 25,000 feet, and a few minutes later, other observers saw a balloon-like object carrying what appeared to be flares over nearby Santa Monica. Then, anti-aircraft batteries spotted what witnesses later described as a swarm of objects flying at various altitudes at speeds of up to 200 miles per hour. Fearing that the city was under attack by the Japanese, they fired 1,400 rounds of ammunition at the bogies. But apparently, none of them hit anything, because no wreckage subsequently was found. Officials initially described the incident to a combination of false alarms and mass hysteria, but ufologists have speculated over the years that the gunners might have been shooting at an extraterrestrial spacecraft. Multiple eyewitnesses saw the object and the military's attempt to shoot it down. Whatever it was, it silently disappeared and was not seen again. No balloon could have survived the assault from the military cannons, and no wreckage nor were balloon fragments ever recovered. Could UFOs have shields or move slightly into another dimension when under attack, allowing their craft to be protected from harm? Is it possible they have technology or supernatural abilities that prevent them from being bombarded while in flight? UFOs are seen in space and in the air all around the globe, but the sky is not the only home for them. There exists another phenomenon that is just as hard to explain as UFOs. USOs, or underwater submerged objects, are often reported as well. Most USO sightings are of a typical UFO emerged from the water and are not seen or classified as separate phenomenon by most people. Although identifying and dispelling unidentified flying objects has typically been imported to militaries as a national security measure, the USO sightings compared to UFO sightings have never been reported as a national threat or caused the sensation that typical UFO sightings often have. Ranging in size and shape, the most common USO sightings are of disc-shaped or cylindrical-shaped objects. Traveling at speeds far exceeding any Earth-based underwater craft, these objects typically travel anywhere between 150 and 500 knots when submerged. Some of these objects have been reported as traveling at much higher speeds. UFOs have been seen by many people all over the world, and for a planet where 2/3 of the surface is covered by water, it should come as no surprise to the eclectic that there is more life hidden away from our eyes than what we get to see on TV. USOs, or unidentified submerged objects, have been seen by many explorers, sailors, naval officers, fishermen, and regular folk getting around the planet in their ships and boats. In 1952, the crew aboard the USS FDR witnessed a metallic object rise from the water and into the sky. This was not the first of sightings for the crew aboard this ship. It's also interesting that at the time of these sightings, the USS FDR was the only ship carrying nuclear weapons. Was a civilization of aliens stranded here who became the mythical subterranean civilizations? Do they move in and out of the water in spaceships, generally at the poles or in other areas with major grid points and vortexes? Though researchers have many USO encounter reports, little is known of these submerged craft. Could aliens be using the cover of our oceans to maneuver around the planet? Bizarre encounters with USOs continue to this day and appear to be as pronounced as UFO reports. One of the many reasons put forth as to why we are being visited is that it is just a simple case of curiosity. In a similar way as the first explorers of our planet discovered new lands and new civilizations, alien life forms who stumble across us in their exploration of space may find us an intriguing and interesting species in our own right. Another popular theory put forward is that the Earth may well contain certain minerals which are not present on another alien planet. There has been some evidence to this in various reports and claims of underground alien bases and sightings of craft seemingly taking samples of Earth. One strong theme to emerge from many of the abduction and contact details is one of kindness and protection. Many abduction victims claim to have been shown mental images of the destruction of Earth through neglect and war. These images have been remarkably similar across a broad spectrum of abduction witnesses, when basically confirming the same images of death and destruction. Perhaps the aliens want to protect us from destruction. One of the more recent theories is that the aliens are using the human race to conduct some form of genetic experiment. This has come about fairly recently due to the connection between animal mutilations and UFOs. Many abduction victims claim that they were subjected to strange experiments, including the removal of semen from men and eggs from women. Some women even claim that they have been impregnated, only to have the fetus removed shortly after conception. The theory that the aliens are preparing for a total invasion is popular in film and media. The main reasoning against this theory is that any civilization that can traverse space and time should be able to invade a civilization that has been flying for less than 100 years easily. If the invasion theory is correct, then surely we would have been invaded many years ago. No matter what their agenda is, aliens apparently are here, and strange reports of their presence emerge yearly. Indeed, the reports of alien contact and UFO sightings grow every year. We may not know why bizarre UFO and alien encounters occur, but we do know that there appears to be no end in sight. With modern technology and the widespread use of digital cameras, there are more recordings of UFOs now than ever before. Perhaps sometime soon, an encounter will occur and be documented so readily that no one and no government can ignore it. If so, then on that day, we may finally know the answer of why disturbing alien encounters are happening.